Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Yes, today it's all about the Paladin. Um, I've been working my way through the 2024 Player's Handbook, the classes, and we're almost there. We've almost sort of covered everything. No, hardly even covered everything. I wish. I really do wish. No, there's quite a few more left to go. But the Paladin has been kind of notorious in the past, and the new version has become almost infamous. I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. How are you, Fred? Grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and I'm going to go through this and cover it in quite a lot of detail. I will be showing you the book, and I will be talking and giving you my assessment. I'm all about analysis, and I'm not just here to just tell you what the changes are. I'm here to tell you what I think of them. So yeah, that's why we're here. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, and we're dealing with Dungeons and Dragons 2024. And that is the player option, the Paladin class. The Paladin class has had some changes. Some have been major changes, some have been minor changes. Some will be viewed as major changes, and others will be viewed as minor changes. For me, ultimately, when you look at a class and you adjust or change some of the action economy around that class, I think that falls into being a different version of the game. Because if you look at older versions of the Paladin class, they're very, very similar. You know, particularly if you go look at version 3, even version 4, and then you look at version 5, and now 2024, for me, is D&D 6e. Now, I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I get your perspective, but when you make a certain number of changes to a game, whether they are at the fundamental level, which that has happened, and at the class level, most of your changes are seen in the classes, in the class design. And there's been quite a few changes, and I'm going to go over them today. Now, I'm all about analysis. Okay, I'm all about analysis and breaking down things and giving you sort of my perspective on something. But I want to make it really clear before I start, and I will be showing you some of the stuff on the players, the player class, the Paladin. I'll show you the information, but the Paladin has always been sort of traditionally the holy warrior for most of Dungeons and Dragons history. But something really strange happened in 2014 and leading up to that point back in 2012 when the playtest was taking place for 5e. And then there was key changes to how the Paladin was viewed by designers and as a result by the player base. So this is a bit of a strange thing because now the modern Paladin tends to be more of a supercharged cleric who can often do things better than a cleric, and a supercharged fighter that is a half-caster. And almost immediately, I have seen in the groups that I've played, people view the Paladin as a better option than taking a cleric. But now in 2024, I would say the version of the Paladin is even better in most ways. There is one thing that people have got very upset about, and that is Divine Smite. And we'll talk about that. But ultimately, I think the Paladin is actually, at its core, not necessarily at the subclass level, but at its core, is probably a lot stronger and almost maybe closer to where it needed to be in terms of the modern concept of the Paladin. Also, yeah, I'll break that down. It's not always the case, but yeah. There are a couple of things I need to say before I go through with this. That is, as a disclaimer, I've been saying this every single time, but I'll say it again. I don't support Wizards of the Coast as a company, okay? I don't buy their products anymore because of their business practice. I just don't agree with it. It's upset me too much. The poor quality of their products has also put me off. So as a result, a patron has provided me with access to the D&D Beyond Digital Player's Handbook for 2024. So this is how I am able to actually go through it and give my honest opinion Because I do have people who still play this game. Like, I've got patrons and subscribers on my channel who still play D&D 5e and will be playing D&D 2024 on my channel. And, patrons and subscribers are still doing this. And, I play a character more than I dungeon master because I can. My home group consists of people who play characters, and all of them are game masters and dungeon masters. So I can do that. I mostly play D&D 5e and BECME or basic D&D right now, but I've been playing a bit more Shadow Dark too, as it happens. And I play a lot of different games, lots of different tabletop role-playing games. So here's the first thing that I would like to say. There are very small changes that I've made that seem to have quite a significant effect on the Paladin. So much so that maybe they have too much of an effect, and of course then your view of what's going on here kind of gets, what's the word, it's very easy for you to look at a Paladin and simply say there's too many changes and I don't like these changes, and I don't know, it's really hard when you look at something like this and to be sort of impartial. Because this is a really good example of where when you make a change to a class, small changes have a huge effect. And I think this is what's tended to happen here. Sometimes, small changes have very little effect on the game, and sometimes they have a huge effect. But anyway, here is the digital breakdown. The artwork for this is all right for me. I'm not really upset by the new Paladin artwork. It's a half orc. I like half orcs. It's a female half orc, and she's got a magical sword and a shield, and that's all cool, no problems. Most of the core stuff for the Paladin is pretty much identical. There's a few things I would like to mention, but I'll do that in a second. It has a section on, playing the core abilities for your Paladin, and then how to multi-class. So at least you've got a table for dealing with how to figure out the core concept of everything. It's here, so it gives you some guidance, which is great, and it's with the Paladin, which is a good place to have it. The table, you'll notice, has changed. There are a few things that were there before that are now gone, and you'll notice two new columns, Channel Divinity and Prepared Spells. We'll get into that in a second. And then you'll notice that we have sort of a different way of, a different way of structuring the capstone, and also a different. Is it a different way of structuring the capstone? Not really. I'll come back to that. Anyway, lay on hands. There have been some adjustments to lay on hands. Spell casting has had quite a bit of adjustment as well. Weapon mastery is completely new at level 1. Your level 2 fighting style, some changes again have taken place. A lot of things you've already seen. If you're playing a martial class, you'll be very familiar with this. Your Paladin Smite has changed significantly. Not just little changes, but quite significant changes. And then your Channel Divinity is a very key aspect of your Paladin. That has gone through a lot of revision and changes as well. Then you have your subclasses, which you can pick Devotion, Glory, Ancients, or the Vengeance option. I think right now the Oath of Vengeance and the Oath of Devotion are probably fighting side by side for who is likely to do the most damage. But I guess time will tell in terms of given situations. The ability score improvement stuff seems to be pretty much in the same place. We've got extra attack. Faithful Steed is something you probably haven't seen before because it's new. The Aura of Protection, essentially the same in many respects. Abjure Foes is a little different to what you're used to. So, yeah. The Aura of Courage, essentially the same in many respects, but there's something else going on here. Now, Radiant Strikes, that is new. Restoring Touch, an adjustment. There's something new here. We have the Aura Expansion, which is just basically a name change. It's really, what it was before is pretty much the same. And level 19, you've got your epic boons because every class get epic boons. And then you'll notice level 20, because every single subclass gets a little different level 20 feature. And then we have our spells. And the spell list did not get a huge revision, okay? There's not a huge amount going on there. Okay, now I want to break down for you my opinion of some of the changes and what they are and how I think they're going to affect the game. The first thing is, when I was looking at the Paladin and their skills, I still don't understand why they're not able to just take any skill proficiency they want. If the vision of the Paladin is not always the goody two-shoes who is, the holy warrior, essentially, lawful good, and we have a different vision, then why can we not open up some of the skill proficiencies? And we still have locked us down to essentially the same. Nothing's changed there. It's a very small adjustment and change that could have taken place, and they haven't done that. And I wish they had, because it would have not really have affected the combat aspect of the game. It would have affected the other part of the game. And if you can put a bit more juice into the other aspects of D&D, such as social interaction, working with exploration, dealing with character development, and dealing with world building. I know you're probably wondering, how come I'm naming off 4 different things? Because I believe, and I agree with Glenn, that there are actually 5 pillars to the game, and they are not just 3. It is not just the 3 that you're normally used to hearing. And so character development and world building is part of those. And to do that, some skills that are broader would have been helpful. The starting equipment. Now, the idea behind starting equipment is usually for beginners, and if you want to get into the game, play the character with the class that you want really fast, and you don't want to do too much stuff. But what they have done is removed the option to pick your weapon. You're given the longsword, you've got a shield, and so essentially they've decided that the best weapon that you could have is a longsword and a shield. But it's essentially the same. The starting equipment is almost identical. Otherwise, you can go and buy your gear for 150 gold pieces if you want. Usually, you're better off to use the starting gear because you get more, but anyway. So the problem is not allowing even a beginner to pick their weapon is, a silly thing to do. It's one of the key choices that whether you're a beginner or an experienced person playing a paladin, you want to make a decision about. Now, that might always be, I take a longsword, but it might well not be that you want to take a longsword. Your vision for your paladin might be different. And you've essentially taken away that very simple thing, like just defining what that weapon was and saying it has to be a longsword, just kind of looks, it's a house rule thing now. Now, Dungeon Masters, okay, I don't want a longsword, you want something else, okay, just switch it out for this. That's what we're going to wind up doing. I just don't know why they bothered with this. They keep doing this of all the classes. Also, too, having a choice between chain shirt and scale mail is again messing around with some of the key choices. There is a slight benefit and disadvantage to having chain shirt or scale mail. They are the same price in the book. Essentially the same price. So why not allow people to choose whether they want chain shirt or the scale mail? But no, they haven't done that. Okay, so there's my gripe in terms of the first stuff. Now, the Paladin has Channel Divinity and Prepared Spells as columns, okay, listing how many you get at whatever Paladin level you are. It's a good change. I think, again, I've seen this before in other classes, it will help avoid confusion by spelling it out. There's no formula that you have to figure out. Even if the formula was quite simple, some people will struggle. This is a good idea. It allows flexibility. Okay, why? Because you're going to get more of stuff. It is much stronger, and I think it will avoid player frustration. Frustration, confusion are always bad things. Allowing flexibility and making something stronger are not absolutely necessary when you're developing or designing a class, but those other two things are very important. Now, Paladins now get spell casting at level 1, not level 2. So Even for a half caster, you're starting off right out of the gate with spell casting, right? It's there. This tends to be a trend in all half casters in 2024. I don't think I agree with this. The problem with front loading a class with all their stuff all at level 1 or at level 2 is it opens up a class to exploiting it for multi-classing simply for mechanical benefit. There's a concept of balance. Now, D&D, let's make it clear, I do not believe that Dungeons & Dragons has ever been balanced, even when they attempted to do so. But now I don't feel like they're attempting to do so at all. It just opens up. I don't think you make multi-classing a thing that is the most optimal thing to do. If you're doing multi-classing, it should be because there is more of a narrative or a flavor feel that you're trying to go for, and having it become the best thing to do because you get so many different things when you multi-class. I don't know, that it's encouraging a bad habit, in my opinion. I know most of my group multi-class. Heck, even I multi-class on occasions. So I get it. I do get it for those people who like multi-classing. But it takes away from the game in so many different ways. Okay, all right, let's keep going. It also indicates, if you're multi-classing, that a lot of the higher level features that you've put into a class are shit. Really? Because you didn't want them. Here we go. Paladins can only change one prepared spell after a long rest, rather than being able to change all of them. Back in 2014, from your spell list, you could change, all the spells that you had prepared. But now you can't. You only get to change one. But here's the thing. It's a silly change, in my opinion. I think this was a ridiculous thing to have done. Why change that? Was it really that instrumental to the balance of the class or the gameplay to have only one spell that you could change? Most of the time, people never change their spells as a paladin anyway. But because they're not the versatile spellcaster, they weren't using their spell slots for casting spells generally anyway. But it might not have much of an effect because, if the game you were playing, you were using your spell slots for Divine Smite back in 2014, you're probably going to be doing that again in 2024. In fact, you'll definitely be doing that. You'll be casting spells with those because of the way it's changed. Paladins will eventually get triple their channel divinities. Once you get to the higher levels, you're going to get 3 times as much as you had before. It's a huge buff. Was it necessary? Probably because they focused way too much on your paladin abilities using channel divinities. There are so many things that require using a channel divinity. Way too many things, which is why they've had to buff it. Otherwise, you'd run out of resources. It's a limited resource. So lay on hands at level 1 is mostly the same, but now it is a bonus action to use it rather than an action as it was before. And it only includes removing the poison condition. Why? Because disease is gone. Apparently, disease does not exist in the D&D world anymore. Well, not in 2024. Why did they remove disease from the game? I think it's silly. I think they've assumed that players did not like disease, and so if anything is deemed as having a 90% or close to 80 to 90% dissatisfaction on a survey, we remove it from the game. This is for dungeon masters. There's plenty of dungeon masters who are going to ignore the fact that they've tried to remove disease from the game, just because it's been there before, and there are things. It is a tool that can be used, and it hasn't really, crippled players playing a paladin to have disease in the game in the first place. So, but there's no point being able to get rid of disease if there's nothing that gives disease now. Anyway, and then making lay on hands even stronger. It is essentially much stronger than it was before in terms of how it operates. The weapon mastery at level 1. You get 2 weapons you can select, and you can change them out on a rest. look, I've already said that I think Weapon Mastery will slow down the game to the point where a lot of people will be so frustrated playing the game, they'll go back to playing 2014 or an earlier version of D&D or a retro clone or a clone of some kind. Um, Level 1 is heavily loaded in the Paladin, and I think it always kind of really was, but it feels even more loaded up than it was before. It's a prime opportunity to exploit for multi-classing, as I said. Okay, fighting styles. At level 2 is just select a fighting style, feat. Of course, all the martials work this way, which gives more options. And otherwise, you can go and just take the other option, which allows you to have 2 cleric cantrips. It widens the range of paladins, but it also robs from the cleric by doing this. I am not a fan of stealing a key thing from another class to give to a class which is essentially... The paladin, really, in many respects, was a subclass of cleric fighter in the past, and now it's become its own class because it was so popular. It was so popular because it was hard to get. You couldn't become a paladin very often. And what they've done here is just sort of muddy things again. I don't mind the idea of having lots of different fighting styles. That's not a problem. I just don't know that I agree with, let's give the paladin cantrips now. Is it a big deal because of cantrips? I don't know. There's just, everything seems to slowly whittle away at that cleric. Paladin Smite at level 2. It makes a smite into a spell. It was not a spell before, and they can be counterspelled. Like if you're using a smite spell, since you can't do it any other way, you can counterspell that. That's if your monsters have counterspell, which if you're a smart dungeon master, you'll be doing that. I would actually imagine that you'd probably like the idea of somebody counterspelling your smite rather than shutting down somebody else's spell, depending on the level that you're casting it at and what you're casting. Anyway, it's a bonus action to use your smite. So the idea is that you use your bonus action, you move your bonus action, and then you make your attack with your main action, okay? It was not a bonus action before. So what this has essentially done, and this is where the big crux of it all comes down to, that people have got so upset about, is you can't spam the divine smite anymore. You can't supernova. Like, you can't, it's not just nova, but like paladins used to just supernova in the same turn with a smite. It needed changing. It was bad design. You know, the reality is that if you can use all your spell slots in the same turn with every strike that you make that hits, whether it's a critical or not, and you can use a spell slot to boost the damage at that level, it's probably too much. This is why the paladin was so popular. It's also why a paladin could kill something in one round at low levels and later on. And then, of course, what would happen is you would then have the paladin character, much like the warlock, saying, I would like to take a rest, because I want to take a rest to get all my spell slots back. And the warlock, you know, definitely wanted that short rest, but, you know, a long rest would be nice too, to get any hit points back if they lost them. But yes, what that encouraged back in 2014 was the paladin unload everything on the biggest target there was, take it down, go have a long rest. And that's what you would wind up in terms of a play style. Unless, of course, people could get in there and take their turn before the paladin had a chance to swipe them. But yeah, it needed a change. I know it's not popular. But yeah, anything that is designed that allows you to use all of your limited resources, which is spell slots, to do damage in the same turn is bad game design. Really, really bad game design. Needed to go. Divine Smite is not necessarily the best spell to use now. So Divine Smite is about the same, I guess. You get one free casting, which nobody's going to be terribly excited by, but you do at least get one free casting of it without using a spell slot, which is always nice, right? So you get to do that once. And then the rest of the time, all those spell slots that you have are probably not going to be used on Divine Smite, because the other Smite spells are far stronger and offer more tactical options, which are actually better than Divine Smite. So Searing Smite, Thunderous Smite, a lot of the other Smite spells, but those two in particular, probably going to be your go-to. Smite is not weaker really, it's just Divine Smite that is weaker. No, it's still weaker. It's still weaker. It's still weaker. And it needed to be. It's still weaker. I don't think Smite should be a spell though. I don't agree with the designers making Smite into a spell. If you really wanted to do that, well, why are we giving them any kind of other spells? Because they're not going to use the other ones. You might as well just have a list of divine smites, of smite spells and nothing else. Because that's all a paladin's going to use them for. You don't get that many spell slots. Only a paladin's special features. If we had made smiting for a paladin just a special feature for that class that nobody else could do, and we eliminate all of those stupid spells that are smite spells that were back in 2014, there weren't that many. If get rid of all that nonsense and just have the paladin have a special feature that only that class could use and nobody else, I would have been much happier. Otherwise, it really cheapens the concept of the Holy Radiant Strike being done by a paladin. You know how I talked about how the paladin robs from the cleric? Well, this is one way of robbing from the paladin, because there are ways of getting spells. When you make something that really should be a class feature into a spell, then some other spellcaster can potentially get it. And if you're not a spellcaster, you could potentially pick it up another way. There are other ways of doing it, right? Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. All it needed to do with Smite is just say you could use it once per turn, or once per round might be maybe more suitable. Once per round would probably be smart. And then you tailor it for the kind of damage you want it to do for one round, and that's it. Then you don't have to worry about people exploiting or power gaming the snot out of it, and it would be fine. Channel Divinity at level 3 includes a better Divine Sense ability. Divine Sense was not very good in the past, but you also have to use up your Channel Divinity resource, and it's limited. There's not that many of them. I don't understand why we need to worry about how many times does it really matter if somebody uses Divine Sense to figure out, if somebody's a fiend or a celestial or evil, or like. I have no problem with, walls, not being able to work through walls or through a barrier like a door or a stone case or something. I don't have a problem with that. But we really need to limit that in terms of how often you could use it. Frankly, I don't even think it needed to be an action. Divine Sense, it's like using your eyes. You're a paladin, and yeah, I'm not a fan of Divine Sense and how it's structured. I think it should have just been no action, and you can use it as many times as you like, because I couldn't give a shit how many times a player uses that thing. Next, subclass at level 3, selecting either the arch. What am I, subclass? I'm not an arch. No, I just talked about those before. You've got a subclass at level 3, moving on. And then you gain your ability score improvement feat at level 4, 8, 12, and 16, just like everybody else. It is not optional to take feats, as I've said before. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the reality is that taking an ability score improvement of just +2, that feat is not as good as taking the other feats that give you a +1 and a mechanical benefit almost always. Maybe not at higher level when you have to make sure things are at a certain point. Otherwise, particularly if you're dealing with a paladin, because you want to have usually a good strength and a good charisma, right? And trying to get too high scores is a hard job to do. So I think the paladin's going to be relying a little bit at later levels. If you ever get that high, I've played to higher levels. You're probably going to have to use the improve the ability score by +2, and yes, and then you'll be taking something else before then. Anyway, Faithful Steed at level 5 gives you the Fine Steed spell, which you had access to before but used a spell slot. Now it's always prepared, and you get free casting once per day, basically, without having a spell slot being used. So, yeah, generally it's a good idea. It's fitting. It's good. No problems with it. Let's move on. Aura of Protection at level 6 is mostly the same, but it's clearly defined and one of the most useful and powerful features in my opinion. one of the things that makes a cleric stand out is the aura of protection. Not just in combat, but sometimes out of combat as well. I would say it's still more of a combat thing, but there are times when outside of combat, it really is very useful. And not just for the paladin, but everybody else around them, because it's an aura, or now called an emanation. Extra attack at level 5 is the same, hasn't changed, and fine, no issues. Then we have Abjure Foes at level 9, lets you frighten a number of enemies equal to your charisma modifier, I believe, rather than just undead. So it's not really specific and tied down to one type of monster creature. You can frighten anything under the sun. Okay, you get it later than a cleric, essentially, but it's much stronger. Certainly, you know, the clerics turn undead. They get it earlier, that concept, but this is stronger and more versatile as well. So yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's pretty good, actually, and it's level 9, so it's kind of fitting for what it is. Aura of Courage at level 10 is mostly the same, with just a clearer description. Radiant Strikes at level 11 lets a melee attack or an unarmed strike do 1d8 extra radiant damage, and in 2014 version didn't allow unarmed strikes. But why the heck, as a paladin, would you worry about that? What, are you going to go beat somebody with your fist when you're a paladin? Probably not. You're going to use a weapon. It's not the thing you need at this level, by the way. I don't believe that giving them Radiant Strike is much more suitable as a level 10 feature, or even going back a little bit further. You know, putting that feature in earlier would have been smarter. Level 11, we're starting to move out of the range where combat things are useful to you. Anyway, that would be my opinion on that one. You could have easily moved Aura of Courage to level 11, and I would have felt a little bit happy about that. Or even, you know, something like, no, it's going to get crowded, isn't it? Yeah, keep going. Next, Restoring Touch at level 14, allowing the following conditions to be removed with a Lay on Hands. So Lay on Hands really only got rid of the poison condition or gave you hit points. Now you can remove the blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or stunned condition. And you can remove one of those things. How often does something remove the stun condition? It doesn't come up very often. But how often does a monster stun you in the first place? That doesn't happen very often. I think for level 14, for what it is, it's very strong. It's much better. I would say a feature like this is more suitable for a paladin, but it does step on the toes of the cleric and the cleric's role. But you're dealing with a level 14 feature, which is, in many respects, a combat feature. But it's also outside of combat, because there will be some things that will have you being frightened outside of combat, or paralyzed, or deafened, or particularly charmed. There's a lot of things that can charm you for a long time. And blinded tends to just be in combat usually. But yes, that covers a lot of the different conditions that you have to contend with. And I think that's much more suitable as a thing that you can do for somebody else. That's a very much a paladin thing. The giving of yourself for somebody else's benefit. So I'm all right with the spec at level 14 and what it essentially does. But yeah, just a little concerned that the cleric's ability to do stuff is sort of being hampered a little bit just by making it as good as it is. Anyway, the aura expansion at level 18 has no change. It's just basically a name change, nothing else. The epic boon at level 19 gives, everybody gets an epic boon now. You get access to an epic boon. The paladin is recommended to take the boon of True Sight, which gives you True Sight to 60 feet. It's very appropriate for high level, okay? Something like True Sight I deem to be a high level feature. It is something you can use in combat, outside of combat. It is taking your paladin in the direction of being like a dragon, essentially, because dragons have true sight. And this is probably one of the few epic boons that I actually like a lot. Epic boons in general aren't very good in general. I think they're not great. They're a bit weak. that are that are a bit watery, but this one's good. The Paladin's capstone at level 20 is different for all the subclasses. I'm not impressed in general by the capstones for the Paladin, except for one that is almost hit the mark. There's just one that's almost there. Generally, I think the Paladin gets less features based off this design. By insisting that the Paladin's capstone be linked to their subclass, I feel like they actually get less rather than as much as the other classes in D&D. So if anything, I think that's probably had a fairly significant effect on the Paladin, not just their smiting ability. The sidebar on the Paladin breaking their oath is basically the same, but it guides the player. It talks to the player rather than to the dungeon master. I think it's a great idea if it works at your table. If ultimately look, what it really should say is, yeah, talk to the player, but it's about the player and the dungeon master coming to an agreement about how this should work. I'll be interested to see if this approach solves some of the problems that players in their head have when they're playing their Paladin and they don't follow their oath, because you should be, right? Otherwise, you need to change your oath or change your character concept. Because I hate to say it, Paladins are played a particular way, and even though they've broadened out the types of Paladin you can be, you still have an oath. It's a tenet. It's a thing that you follow. That's what makes you a Paladin in the first place. Next, the Paladin spell list is generally the same, but it has 2 new spells on that list. You get Divine Smite, because Divine Smite was not a spell before, and now it is. And then, of course, Greater Restoration. It's an improvement against what the Paladin had before in some respects. With Greater Restoration, Divine Smite, it's questionable, of course. But again, it's making the cleric less important just because you have included Greater Restoration. You could argue the point that one of its key abilities, class features, eliminates so many conditions that it's kind of like Greater Restoration in the first place. So, like, why would you worry? Anyway, moving on. It might have been smarter just to get rid of this Greater Restoration nonsense, and that is a spell, and just made the other feature that they get at level 14 a bit bigger, a bit better, and then just left it at that. Anyway, it's great to see that the spell list for the Paladin is in the spell in the Paladin class section of the book. It's not at the back of the book. That was a silly thing to do. This time they've done a better job. The Paladin class is better, in my opinion, in general, with minor changes. Some are very major, and I'm going to talk a bit more about them. The subclasses, I would say, are a mixed bag. Some have had improvements, some have not. Your subclasses, your devotion, your vengeance, your glory, and your ancients, well, I'm going to go over them really, really quickly and broadly, okay? So first off, the Oath of Devotion Paladin has better features all around, in my opinion. I think all around the Devotion one has gotten better in terms of what it can do. The only thing, unfortunately, is the Devotion Paladin, the only standout ability is the Sacred Weapon for me. That kind of feels like it fits with a Paladin, but you could put Sacred Weapon into pretty much any Paladin subclass and it would be fitting. That's the only thing that really stands out for me. I'm not saying that the other abilities don't do good things. I'm just saying in terms of the narrative and flavour, it's the only one that stands out. Okay, next. The Oath of Glory Paladin has only one great feature, in my opinion, and that is Living Legend at level 20. Otherwise, the rest of the stuff I say is a mixed bag. Generally improved, but a mixed bag. Some are good, some aren't so great. Some are definitely better than they were before. Living Legend and the Oath of Glory. When I think about what Living Legend does and the Oath of Glory, it fits pretty smack on. But you don't get it till level 20. Who is ever going to see that thing work? Whereas an Oath of Devotion Paladin, you're going to get to use your Sacred Weapon quite early on. If you have to wait till level 20 to get your iconic thing for your subclass, you've had to wait too long. Anyway, the Oath of Ancients Paladin has one reasonable narrative feature. I really struggled with this. I was thinking, Oath of Ancients Paladin, what is my view of that? and I had to come down to Nature's Wrath. But it's not very powerful. It's fitting. It kind of fits with the the Oath of Ancients, but that's really I mean, basically, it's like entangling vines, really. You're using nature to attack. Generally, this subclass has been improved. I mean, it was there before, right, in 2014, and the Glory one is the only one that's new that came from a different book. Yeah, I feel like the Oath of Ancients is, I don't know, will it wind up being the one that people don't go to that much? No, I think maybe the Glory one will be the one that people really go for. Anyway, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin struggles to have a really strong narrative feature. Really does, as far as I'm concerned. But it does have two that I think are very close to where they needed to be. Out of all of them, that was the one that I really struggled with. My first instinct was Avenging Angel, but you don't get to level 20 again. That's a bad, if you have to wait till level 20 to get something that sets your Vengeance Paladin apart. And then the only other one that I could think of was the Vow of Enmity, which you get earlier on, which is good, right? It's good that you're getting it earlier rather than waiting till level 20. So you've got two that are sort of there, but they're not quite locked down as far as I'm concerned. So many of the subclass features, when I was looking at all of them, whether it's the Vengeance, Ancient, Glory, or Devotion, a lot of the subclass features feel like they are repeating, like they are essentially the same thing. There isn't enough difference between them in terms of what they do to actually have them feel like they are separate entities. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. But as a general comment, I think most of the Paladin features are improved over the 2014 version, and which is great to see. The only one that has not been improved and has been nerfed is, of course, the Smite. But the Smite needed to be adjusted. It really did. Okay, there are a couple of things I would like to say about the new design as well, and things that I think they should not have done, and things that I think they should have added or considered including into the base class specifically. I could not give a shite about the subclasses truly, but the base class you need to get right. And there are a couple of things that really annoy me, and I think that will annoy other people who are playing the Paladin. The Paladin relies on its channel divinity resource far too much with many of the class and subclass features. The number of times you have to use your limited resource channel divinity for some of the features that are supposed to be part of your class or your subclass, there's too many of them. Far too many. I would frankly have preferred if they took the concept of channel divinity and flushed it down the toilet and eliminated this limited resource and just decided how many times during a round or a turn are we going to allow our Paladin to do something. Just break it down to that. Figure out how often we want them to use it. If we feel whatever we're giving them is something they should only use once per day, great. Just say you can use it whenever, once per day. If we only want them to smite once per round, then just say once per round. If you want them to be able to use Divine Sense, okay, just decide, is it really going to matter if it's linked to channel divinity and using up channel divinity as a resource? I think that was a huge kind of thumbs down for me. Do not like that at all. The next thing, the Paladin class will be fighting, struggling, wrestling to decide what to use their bonus action for, because there are so many things you can use your bonus action for in this game. And the new Paladin relies on a lot of bonus action interchange. Now, you could say, well, at least it's not an action. Yeah, but you can build things into the action. And now you're going to be trying to fight and decide, what is the thing that I'm going to combine with my action and my bonus action? Far too many bonus actions are linked to abilities and features in the Paladin. I've seen this happen with the Monk and other classes. It's really bad with the Monk. Here, I don't think it's quite as horrendous, but it's certainly going to be a pain in the butt for people. And it will chew up time if you don't know what you're doing and you haven't prepared and you haven't thought about things, or you've got to change your decision making on the fly. And I'm not happy about that at all. But then my view is get rid of bonus actions completely and just have a movement and an action, and then tie some of the things that used to be bonus actions into having an action. So they, when you smite, you can smite, it's an action, you make an attack, you smite, okay? And you can do it like once with one of your attacks. And it would have been easy to structure it that way, and they didn't do it that way. Anyway, the Paladin, I think there's always been traditionally, Paladins I don't think they necessarily got castles or strongholds. So I guess that would be questionable. I would still like the opportunity to have some sort of home base. The problem is that a Paladin, when you think about the traditional Paladin gave away all their wealth, but yet they have some of the most expensive gear to look after. They're wearing plate armor. They have all these weapons they have to upkeep. So I don't know that it makes much sense. And if you're going to broaden the concept of Paladin, they don't need to necessarily be the solo on their own fighter who never has a settled down place and doesn't have a castle or a stronghold. So a stronghold at higher levels would have been nice. Paladins don't normally have followers or an apprentice or a squire, and yet they are basically a knight. Paladin's basically like a holy knight. Yeah, a holy cleric, a holy knight. And yet we don't have anything that ties them to having a squire or an apprentice at some point. I would have liked to have seen that. Another thing that I certainly thought would have been nice, and I mean, of course, a lot of this is falling back onto the traditional concept of the Paladin, so that might be a problem too, since that has changed a lot. Why can I not dimensionally travel with my Paladin into the realm of Celestia, to the celestial plane? Why can I not travel there when I need to at high level? Like I can just open up the portal and go on in. It doesn't have to be an action to do so I can get away in the middle of a battle, but give me in a minute, I can open up a portal, go to Celestia. Go check and go hang out with the angels, the planeteers, and the gods that I work for, and have a chat. There's an opportunity not only to travel to a place very easily, but also to get more information, which is, the Paladin's got so much combat stuff as it is. It would have been nice to have something that wasn't combat as well, and I think that would have been very fitting. Next, if you are playing a Paladin, you can't tell me that the one thing that you would really like is a legendary weapon at high level. And what weapon is that? You want a Holy Avenger, whether it's a sword, an axe, a glaive. It doesn't matter. But that is the desire at high level for a Paladin. Heck, even at low level, you don't want to give them a Holy Avenger at low level, but a Holy Avenger. At some point in the character progression of the Paladin, there should have been, you get a Holy Avenger. Why? Because you did the right things. You follow your oath. You follow your tenets, and the gods or powers that you're fighting for are pleased with your service. Here you go. And they didn't do that. And now it's down to a dungeon master deciding how to fit that in when they think it's, it could have been just part of the character progression. It really could have been. I don't think that a Paladin should necessarily be making their Holy Avenger, but being gifted it from a god seems like the most appropriate thing under the sun. Anyway, the other thing, why does the capstone features for the Paladin not have them transform into a celestial being like an angel or a planeteer? That is one of the things that you notice how the Vengeance Paladin, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin, has this, avenging angel. It's almost there. It's so close. It's so close. You're level 20. Let them transform into a full-blown angel or planeteer with wings. Yes, the last thing you want to do is have a flying Paladin. I get it. But they're level 20. They're now facing, if you're a Paladin and you're level 20, you're facing gods, their avatars, and you're facing demons and devils, high-level demons and devils, who might well be able to fly as well, and probably do. So you need to be able to get up in the air and get at them, because they're flying as well. And you're probably, duking it out alongside planeteers and angels. So just let them become one. Let them do that. But no, they didn't do that. I'm sad. I'm going to cry after this live stream because of that very fact. And yes, I'm going to cry about my Holy Avenger not being tied into the Paladin at high level as well. Those are my two biggest beefs. Anyway, next. The new Paladin class for 2024 is really a great example, I think, of how designers are giving players almost everything that they have asked for at low level, not at high level, but at low level, makes them so powerful that the fun and challenges of the game have been removed. I when I was looking at the Paladin, 2014 was kind of like that as well. Like, if I had a choice between picking up a fighter or a Paladin, tend to go with the Paladin over the fighter. It was out of the martial classes, it was also a spellcaster. It was basically a Gish. It's got spellcasting and it fights up close, so it's a good thing to have. And multi-classing Paladin, Warlock, Paladin, Sorcerer, those were certainly things that you consider, right? Because Warlock and Sorcerer are charisma focused, and you had to have some way of sort of making that all work. My general feeling is a big clap to Wizards of the Coast. Well done. Well done for managing to design out the fun and the challenge of the game with the Paladin. They haven't just done it with the Paladin. They've done it with the Monk. They've done it with a lot of different things. Heck, the Wizard's been there for ages. It's been going on for a long, long time. So when people complain about the game being too easy, whether it's players complaining about it or it's game masters complaining about it, will they be blaming the power of the character options, or will they blame the monster design if the monster design is not able to keep up with them? Or will they blame the skill of some poor dungeon master, whether they are new or experienced, for not fixing all the problems that have been created? And I will be laughing over into the side thinking, yes, somebody is going to blame the wrong thing. And the thing they should be blaming is the people who designed the thing in the first place. One of the things that you've got to understand, this is why I have to be very careful about how I would like to build the classes myself. Because I play as play characters more than I dungeon master, my vision of what I want is sometimes a bit much. And, if you look at previous designers of the game, one of the things that has always sort of been stated is you've got to be careful about designing a game, particularly D&D, which is not really balanced, about building it so that it's built on what the players always want. Because the players, what they want is to design the fun out of the game completely and remove the challenge from the game. And so if you leave it completely to their hands and you don't use some sort of rational thought about the fact that they've usually got only one focus, the end result is a game that is not very exciting. Do you know what I mean? It might be nice to be able to beat something down really hard the first time, and the second time and the third time, and later on it's starting to get very, very tiresome. At this point, much of the Dungeons and Dragons class systems, I've noticed, have almost been completely eroded by multi-classing. So it's a class system. D&D is a class system. If you don't want it to be a class system, you should be playing a different system, or they need to make the decision, the design system, where we're not going to have classes anymore. But when you start making multi-classing, subclasses, or classes that are so similar to another class, or making specific class features that are so similar to another class, or you have feats that duplicate another class's feature, you're really eroding the concept of a class system. And that means that none of the classes are really that special ultimately in the end, which also means that you essentially don't need the class system at all. And I still feel like the Paladin in 2024, just like in 2014, I had the same view of the 2014. The Paladin is too much like a cleric. It's too much like a cleric. Get rid of the spell casting stuff. Lock down what they really need to be able to do. Give them things they can just keep doing over and over and over again, and just make sure they're not so powerful it doesn't matter. That would have been my preference, and they haven't done that, and that is a very sad thing. Yes, I guess that's my view. Anyway, I'm going to go through some of the other stuff, I suppose, in a second, probably the subclasses, have a look at chat, things like that. But before I do that, I'm going to sign out and end this point. For those of you who have had enough and want to go, you'll know this is the point. So, yeah, thank you for watching and listening. Thank you to my patrons. All the best with your game, and yes, all the best with playing your new Paladin. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, all right. So let's have a look at chat very quickly, and then I'm going to go through. Now, it's pretty quiet today by the looks of it. I suspect as I go through more and more of these classes, the excitement for them is going to get less and less. But anyway. Let's have a look and see what people have to say. Fred Huber, patron, thank you for being here, mate. Negative space. You're watching while you're making dinner. No, well, fair enough. I totally get it. So what have you got here, negative space? I don't like multiclassing because I feel like people do it to break the game. Yeah, that's the problem. It's often not done. The motivation behind it is often not a narrative or a flavor thing that they're doing. There are people who do that, but often it's not. But it's instead to break the game for, character, breaking the game seems to be more of a priority than for character reasons. This has always existed. Something like this has always existed. They've just made it easier to do because the restrictions on multi-classing there aren't that many. It's not that bad. It's not that hard. Certainly not as hard as it was before. Yeah. Look, it is definitely, if you have a look at how some of the classes are built, if you multi-class and you play from level 1 to 10, which most people tend to be doing, you're pretty much fine. Some of the higher level features should be making multi-classing, if you play beyond level 10, a really bad idea. But they don't, because so many of the lower level features are so useful compared to the higher level features. This is a strange way to design your game. You should not do that. High level features should be much more interesting. All right, you have a good dinner. He's probably already gone. So, Fred Huber, what do you got here? Back to AD&D 2E multiclassing. You couldn't go up an original class again, and you couldn't use any other original class skills until you... I don't think the answer is going back to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition multiclassing. But I don't think that... I don't think the multiclassing system that we're using right now is good for the game. It's good for people who are playing the game who want more power and want to be better at doing things, because they can, from level 1 to 10, they can do quite well. Beyond that, I noticed, particularly since I've played from level 1 to 16 and Dungeon Mastered from level 1 to 20, I've noticed that multi-classes beyond level 10 start to struggle a little bit, even in 5e, and 2024, they're probably going to have the same problem. So yeah, if you know you're only going from level 1 to 10, then you're going to multi-class probably if you're into optimizing, power gaming, min-maxing, and you're going to have an advantage over everybody else. But if you go beyond 10, weird things start to happen, and you start, particularly if you're a spellcaster. Yeah. Anyway, Paladin used to be encouraged to get a squire. Yes, I want my Paladin, my playable Paladin, to have built into it getting a squire, and they don't have that, which sucks. Pale Rider, I like a mix of Beck-Me and 2nd edition AD&D. Fair enough. I get it. I don't think the solution is going back to Beck-Me D&D or 2nd edition AD&D. I think they need to rethink what they're doing completely to make it work. Anyway, I've gone for an hour. I'm going to go over the subclass features because I really didn't do that. I talked in general about the class itself, so I thought I would at least try to do a sort of a quick overview of what they have and what they do, and then I'm out of here. Yeah. Okay. So first off, Oath of Devotion, which might well be comparable with the, or even probably maybe even the better of them, over the Vengeance one. I think the Devotion and Vengeance are pretty close to being some of the better subclasses. Anyway, you basically at level 3 Oath of Devotion spells, you get a bunch of spells. Like, you know, a lot of these spells aren't bad spells at all. They're very useful. I don't quite understand the artwork on this one. I suppose we're trying to be more diverse. It's not bad. It's not a bad idea. No, I kind of like it. It's all right. Yeah. Is this the right one? Do I feel like I'm in the wrong place? Why do I feel like I'm in the wrong place? Smite. No, I'm in the right place. I'm just looking at it and I was thinking, Flame Strike? Okay. Yeah, okay. Commune, Flame Strike, next one. Oh, well, that's another thing I was going to say is I don't understand why the Paladin doesn't have some way of communicating with a deity or the higher power they're fighting for. There's nothing like that. You know, the Warlock got something like that, but a Paladin didn't get it. Like, why? Why not? Should be there. Anyway, Sacred Weapon. So, attack action. You can spend one of your channel divinities to use your Sacred Weapon. There's the problem. The channel divinity gets used way too much, and the one melee weapon, you know, gets positive energy. You get 10 minutes, which means you might get 2 combats out of it, but, you know, anyway. And you add your charisma modifier to your attack roll when you're making an attack with this weapon. And, yeah, and it deals radiant damage. Instead of being a magical attack, it just says radiant damage. So you're just changing the damage type. Most creatures don't have resistance or immunity to radiant damage, and I suppose that's why they're looking at it this way. Anyway, and it also emits bright light up to 20 feet, and you get dim light to another 20 feet beyond that. You can end the effect early with no action, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, anyway, next one, level 7, Aura of Devotion. So you and your allies are immune to the charmed condition while in the Aura of Protection. If a charmed ally enters the aura, the condition has no effect. So, yeah, okay, all right. I mean, the basic aura they get is pretty good anyway. This is just a little bit more, I guess. Next, level 15, Smite of Protection. So your magical smite now radiates positive energy, and you can cast Divine Smite. Oh, God. You and your allies have half cover while in the Aura of Protection. Okay, all right. Next one. Holy Nimbus, level 20. As a bonus action. Oh, there's another bonus action. You can imbue your Aura of Protection with holy power, granting you the benefits for 10 minutes. At least it's not 1 minute. And you can end it for no action. Well, thank God for that. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. You can restore certain things. So you can also restore up to 5 spell slots, no action required. So you can use your 5th level spell slot for this. So Holy Ward, you have advantage on saving throws you are forced to make by a fiend or an undead. By making it so specific, it's kind of it's almost a nothing burger. It's fitting, I guess, because you're a paladin. I get that, but yeah, it may not come up that much at even at level 20. You should be facing fiends at this point for sure. But yeah. But then, of course, you've got a couple of other things. Radiant damage. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in your aura, the creature takes radiant damage equal to your charisma modifier plus your proficiency bonus. Okay. And that's not going to be that much damage at high level, at level 20. But doing damage at high level means nothing. Like, even a paladin, no matter what they've done to the paladin for 2024, paladins don't need to worry about doing damage at level 20. They really don't. Next, Sunlight. The aura the aura is filled with bright light like sunlight. So in other words, it's going to be fine if you're dealing with a vampire. It's way too specific. I just don't think this is why I don't like this particular level 20 capstone. It's kind of shite, if you ask me. I'm not saying that the what they had before was wonderful, but yeah, it's not that good. Next, Oath of Glory, level 3. You get Inspiring Smite. So again, immediately you cast Divine Smite, and you can expend 1 use of your Channel Divinity to do this. Oh god, here we go. And you get temporary hit points. Like every class now has a way of getting temporary hit points. There are so many different ways of getting these temporary hit points. To the creature of your choice within 30 feet of you. So it doesn't have to be you, it could be somebody else. Yeah, the total number of temporary hit points is equal to 2d8 plus your paladin level, divided amongst the chosen creatures however you like. So blah, 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 blah. So you can do more than one creature. You can divide them up and spread them out if you need to. So if everybody goes down, I suppose, you could just roll this up, and you should get enough to be able to get every single person 1 hit point and they're on their feet. That's essentially what you could do with it, I suppose. It would be like a healing word. It would be like healing word, but for multiple targets. This is how you could probably use this thing if you wanted to. Okay, next. Level 3, Oath of Glory spells. So you get a bunch of spells. Some of them are all right. Some aren't that great. The higher level spells are pretty good though. They're not bad. They're decent stuff. I see magic weapon and haste and protection from energy, and freedom of movement is good sometimes. And the higher level 17 level spells, they're not bad too. Next, level 3, Peerless Athlete. A bonus action, you can expend 1 of your Channel Divinity uses. Oh god, we're back here again. And it makes you more athletic. For 1 hour, you have advantage on a strength athletics check or dexterity acrobatics check. And the distance of your long and high jump increases by 10 feet. Okay, this is extra distance costs. So the extra distance still costs you movement as normal. Here's the problem. Your level 3 feature basically would be useful if you were playing Donkey Kong. At least, I mean, some of these things can be used in combat. I am not of the opinion that everything you get should be about combat. Peerless Athlete, though, is still kind of shite. I like the idea of having advantage on a strength athletics check or dexterity acrobatics check more than I like the idea of the long and high jump. How many times have you had to jump in your games? Okay, next. Level 7, Aura of Alcrity? God, what is that, a real word? Your speed increases by 10 feet. Alcrity. I don't even know what that is. In addition, whenever an ally enters your aura of protection for the first time, on a turn or starts their turn there, the ally speed increases by 10 feet until the end of your next turn. So basically you can increase pretty much everybody's speed by 10 feet. Everybody's running around like Speedy Gonzales. Look, getting an extra 10 feet is pretty useful. In combat and outside of combat, not so much. This is still very much a combat feature. It's at level 7, so it's in the right place. It doesn't really strike me as a paladin thing, but anyway, let's keep going. At least you get to share it with other people. That's a paladin thing. Level 15, Glorious Defense. You can turn defenses into a sudden strike. So when you and another creature you can see within 10 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can take a reaction to grant a bonus action to the target's armor class against that attack, potentially causing it to miss. So the bonus equals your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. If the attack misses, you can make 1 attack with a weapon against the attacker as part of. It's a big huge mess. I mean, it's there. I suppose it's got a use. It's level 15. What the heck are we doing here? Like, this is not a level 15 feature. You can use it a number of times equal to your charisma modifier, and it's so long-winded. It's trying to cover all the bases. If they hit, if they miss, but it's the wrong thing. At level 15, this is not what you want. This is not what you're looking for, necessarily. You're looking for something else. Level 15, you're dealing with going to other worlds. You're crossing the world. You're dealing with gods. You're probably dealing with demons and devils and undead. And yeah, this is not what you're after. This would have been a good time to be able to have a chat with your deity, though. This would have been a nice place to stick it, but no apparently not. Because they're glory. What the heck is a paladin of glory? Anyway, next one. This is not bad. Level 20, living legend. Just the name itself narratively is interesting. So you empower yourself with the legends, whether true or exaggerated, of your great deeds. This is very much a glory thing. Yeah. As a bonus action, you can gain the benefit below for 10 minutes. So at least it's 10 minutes. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So it's a once-off thing at level 20. I don't like once-off things, but if it's strong, then okay. You can also restore your use of it by expending a level 5 spell slot. No action required. So you can use it, no action required, if you're using a spell slot. If you're not using a spell slot, it's a bonus action. Okay. Next, what do you get? You get to pick one of these things. Okay, so I get, you are blessed with otherworldly presence, advantage on all charisma checks. Well, that's outside of combat. That's not a bad idea. The only problem is it's a dice roll. It's just a dice roll. Advantage. I'm not sure that it's a level 20 feature at all. No, I do know. It's not a level 20 feature. Saving throw, reroll. So if you fail a saving throw, you can, as a reaction, re-roll it, and you must use the new result. Basically, again, it's another dice mechanic. It doesn't really quite fit for what I was thinking of. An erring strike. Once on each of your turns when you make an attack roll with a weapon and miss, you can cause the attack to hit instead. This is kind of like the old rogue capstone. It never was very good, frankly, as a level 20 feature. It's still about combat and it's still dice rolls. I like the name, I like the idea, I just don't like the implementation of the mechanics. Next. The Oath of Ancients. Nature's Wrath. I was talking about this before. This is the only thing that stood out for me out of all of them. As a magic action, so it's going to use your action, you have to use your channel divinity. Again, so you create vines around nearby creatures. Okay, so creatures of your choice that you can see within 15 feet of you must succeed on a saving throw, or they are restrained for 1 minute. Okay, and they can repeat the saving throw to end it. Yeah, it's not that strong. It's not that powerful. Yeah, okay, all right. And channel divinity. Anyway, moving on. Oath of Ancient Spells. There's plenty of spells here that are useful. You know, Misty Step, Speak with Animals, sort of, you know, Moonbeam, Plant Growth, Protection from Energy, Ice Storm. It's all right. Stone Skin. Well, it's better than it was before. But really, I'm going to use that. You're a paladin. You don't need this. Do you really need the stone skin? No. Commune with nature. Yeah. Tree stride. Anyway, level 7. Aura of Warding. Ancient magic lies so heavily upon you that you can form an eldritch ward. Okay. All right. So what does this mean? Basically, blunting energy. So you have resistance to necrotic, psychic, and radiant damage while in the aura of protection. And your allies, not just you, but your allies as well. Okay, so we have expanded our damage resistance. Necrotic comes up a reasonable number of times. Radiant, very rarely are going to be dealing with that. Psychic, it's pretty rare as well. I mean, unless you're dealing with undead or you're dealing with, I guess, aberrations, like a mind flayer. I don't get this one. Anyway, I mean, it gives you something, but it's kind of really situational. Moving on. Level 15, Undying Sentinel. Okay, so basically, this is level 15, people. When you are reduced to 0 hit points and not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead and gain a number of hit points equal to 3 times your paladin level. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So it's a one-off thing. It's level 15. It's a combat feature. It's essentially to stop you from dying. So stopping somebody from dying beyond level 10 particularly when you're not just getting one hit point, I suppose is a bit more in line with that. But how often, I can tell you how often people have died in games, even when I've thrown really tough things at them. Level 15 to 20. The only way I had a main character who was that level, and I'm not talking about a paladin. Paladin is even harder to kill. But a monk. Imagine a monk being attacked by 9 adult red dragons because they wandered into no man's land, knew fully well they were going to be attacked, and it took me a while to take them down and to outright kill them because nobody came to help them. Nobody came to help them as they should. Leave them to die if you're going to be stupid like that. That's how often death happens at level 15 when you're playing D&D 5e if you're using the monsters in the monster manual. And I did not use those. I beefed them up a lot, and I used a lot. So Paladin's never going to get to use this feature because it's not going to come up. They've got so many hit points and their armor class is so high. So really pointless. Next, level 20. Elder Champion. As a bonus action. Oh God, there's another one of those. As a bonus action, you imbue your aura of protection with primal power for 1 minute. Why is it just 1 minute? It's a level 20 feature and we're only going to give them 1 minute. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So you get to imbue your aura with primal power and you gain the benefits below. So you get all these benefits, which is good. Are they going to work for us? Diminish defiance. Enemies in the aura have disadvantage on saving throws against your spells and divine channel divinity options. That's a pretty decent ability, but it's a combat ability, and it's a you have to get close enough for them to be in the aura, which you probably will be. Okay, I suppose that's something, but I don't like it as a level 20 feature. This is something that should have been earlier on. Next, regeneration. At the start of each of your turns, you regain 10 hit points. You're basically a troll. Okay, nice. Again, it's a combat feature. You won't need to worry about dying at level 20 as a paladin. It just doesn't happen that often. You're going to have to throw 3 or 4 different encounters at the same time at these players to be able to kill them outright. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. And then swift spells. Whenever you cast a spell that has a casting time of 1 action, you can use a bonus action instead. God almighty, are we using everything else with bonus actions? Do you think we're going to worry about casting spells as a bonus action? Since most of the spells we're going to be using is smite spells, so they're bonus actions anyway. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of this, frankly. I'm not saying that they don't give you something, but yeah, it's missed the point. Anyway, Oath of Vengeance. Last one. Oath of Vengeance spells. You get a Bane is fine. Hunter's Mark, I don't think many people like Hunter's Mark nowadays, but that's for the Ranger. Hold Person, Misty Step, they're all right. Haste, Protection from Evil. Banishment, really good spell. Well, it was in the past. And I think it still is, actually. I don't think they nerfed it. Dimension Door, good for escaping. Scrying, Hold Monsters, pretty situational. But Scrying is all right. Okay. They're fine. More spells, I guess. Vow of Enmity. It's pretty much what I would say is essentially the same thing. When you make the attack action, you can spend the use of your channel divinity. Again, channel divinity is coming in again. You can target a creature that is within 30 feet of you. You have advantage on attack rolls against that creature for 1 minute. So hopefully, if it's the biggest creature, you can keep wailing on it until it's down. Okay? But it does state here, if the creature drops to 0 hit points before the vow ends, you can transfer the vow to a different creature. Now that's quite useful. This is suitable for a level 3 level. Unlike level 3, this is fine. Even a little bit higher, it would have been fine. This is suitable for what I consider to be a standard thing for a paladin to do. But they've made it part of the Vengeance subclass. So okay, that's fine. Next, and there's no action to transfer it over, which is good. Level 7, Relentless Avenger. Your supernatural focus helps you close off a foe's retreat. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, oh god, you can reduce the creature's speed to 0 until the end of the current turn. Well, that's if you get an opportunity attack. What if you don't? When you can then move up to half your speed as part of the same reaction. This movement doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. I just say why. I don't like reactions that much. I don't like bonus actions that much. And I really hate opportunity attacks a lot. And it's such a situational thing. You'd have to have a very specific build for this to be even remotely useful to you, if you ask me. Next, level 15, Soul of Vengeance. Immediately after a creature under the effect of your Vow of Enmity hits or misses with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to make a melee attack against the creature that is within range. This is a low-level feature. This is not a level 15 feature. I don't know why the hell I put that here. Yeah, it gives you something else, but it's not the right thing for level 15. Yeah, moving on. I'm not even going to waste my time with that one. Next, this is the one thing that stood out for me the most, where I felt like they finally, out of all the high-level features they put together, this might have been the right one. It just wasn't quite enough for level 20, if you ask me. Here we go. As a bonus action. Jeez, really? As a bonus action, you gain a benefit for 10 minutes. Okay, it's 10 minutes. Or until you end them. No action required. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you get a long rest. So you get one use of it for 10 minutes. It's a bonus action to do it. You can also restore your use of it by expending a 5th level spell slot. So you can use a 5th level spell slot. Will not require an action. No action then. But it's a bonus action if you want the free use. Which is not really a free use because you've got to get something at level 20. Avenging Angel. You sprout spectral wings on your back and have a fly speed of 60 feet and can hover. Sweet. I like this idea. Frightful Aura. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in your aura of protection, that creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or have the frightened condition for 1 minute. Or until it takes any damage. Okay, until you whack it. And then it won't be frightened anymore. But then, of course, you won't attack the thing that you frightened. You'll only attack the things that didn't run away. Okay. Attack rolls against the frightened creature have advantage. Well, you can get advantage is you can get, there were 50 ways you could get advantage back in 2014. There are 50 different ways based on classes, things you could do. There were so many different ways. There's even more ways to get advantage on an attack roll. And this is a level 20 feature. This here is kind of on the right track, but I wouldn't say it's quite there. Get rid of the 10 minutes and just transform them into a sodding angel permanently. So they can fly around and they can have the aura all the time. It's a level 20 feature. Forget about this bloomin' bonus action thing. This is the only if they've just gone a little bit further, it would have been a true level 20 feature, as I said, but they didn't. And I'm going to go and cry in a minute after I finish this live stream because it's not there, and I'm sad. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm done with my ranty thing. There'll be another rant on a different class. I don't know what class that'll be. It'll be ones I haven't covered so far. Yeah. Anyway, hello Wizards and Warp Drives. Nacho, how are you doing? Patron of the channel, thank you for being here, buddy. Dealing with level 20 Oath of Vengeance Paladin at the moment. Oh, are you? That's right, you're running level 20. This is the Tomb of Horrors. Flying through the Tomb of Horrors would not help you that much, frankly. I don't think it would have been a bit of a, how much flying can you really do in a dungeon? If you're outside of a dungeon, it's a different story. Yeah, in a dungeon, not really that much of an issue, is it? Anyway, let's end this poll. I think I did the right thing here. I pressed the right button. Where is my poll? Did my poll disappear? I feel like my poll has disappeared. Oh no, there it is. There it is. Let's end the poll. Let's see what people have to say. 18 votes. Out of the 18 people who were here who voted, do you like the Paladin class for Dungeons & Dragons 2024? Undecided, 38%. That's very close to 50. No, 27%. I am not surprised. Yes, 16%. Well, at least somebody are happy. Somebody's happy about it. And just watching 16%. So, yeah. Let there be an unkillable PC that can't miss an attack. So why bother rolling? No, I'm not looking at doing that at level 20. What I'm saying to you is, at level 20, being able to fly is not a big deal. It really isn't. And being able to have advantage is not a big deal at level 20. Frightening off creatures, okay, sure, yeah, you can frighten off creatures. At level 20, is it really going to matter? Most things are going to be, at level 20, most things you face at level 20, at the right challenge rating of level 20 or more, or CR 20 or more, will be immune to the frightened condition anyway. So you won't be able to frighten them off in the first place. That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. Yeah. Anyway. You need to be able to fly at high level. You really do. Battles tend to happen in the air at high level. That's why I'm saying the flying thing shouldn't be an issue. Just give them flying all the time at level 20. Turn them into an angel. They've got their wings. Finally, you got your wings. Well done. Anyway, I got to get out of here. You guys got to get out of here. And I need to go and cool off, obviously. So a huge thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. Thank you for taking part in the poll. A huge thank you to those people who are patrons and support me on Patreon so that I can get an opportunity to have a rant and a discussion and analyse some of these classes. We're getting closer and closer to the end. We're not quite halfway through, but I imagine that by the time we get into, the December, I'll be done. Thank God for that. Anyway, thank you for that. But those of them in chat, thanks for commenting. Negative Space, Fred Huber, Wizards and Warp Drives, Pale Rider, and I think that was everybody that was here today. It's pretty quiet today. So yeah, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Yes, smites needed to be once per turn, and once per turn as a mechanic would have been fine. But I gotta go.